Hello everyone, and welcome back to Deep Chronicles World. Before you cozy up and drift off into dreamland, I've got a fun idea. Why not drop a comment below and share where in the world you're tuning in from? And hey, if you're enjoying these stories as much as I love sharing them, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. Now, let's get comfy, relax, and dive into tonight's tale. Ready? Let's begin. Kill in silence. Strike from the shadows. But above all, protect the family. These weren't just words to Vincent Gigante, they were the foundation of an empire built on one of the greatest deceptions in criminal history. For 30 years, he fooled the FBI, the courts, and even his own lieutenants by playing the role of a deranged man wandering the streets of New York. But behind the facade of mumbled words and disheveled appearance lurked one of the most brilliant criminal minds America had ever seen. The America of 1928, the year Vincent Louis Gigante was born, was a nation in transition. Prohibition was in full swing, transforming ordinary citizens into outlaws and creating a vast underground economy that would give rise to organized crime as we know it today. In Manhattan's Little Italy, where Vincent took his first steps, the streets were more than just pathways between tenement buildings, they were the arteries of a parallel society, one where success was measured not by the size of your bank account, but by the strength of your connections and the depth of your respect. The Gigante family, like many Italian immigrants of their time, lived in a world caught between two cultures. On one side was the American dream of legitimate success through hard work and determination. On the other was the reality of their neighborhood, where power flowed not from law books but from the back rooms of Italian restaurants and social clubs. The police rarely ventured into these streets unless absolutely necessary, understanding that here, the real law was written in unspoken codes of honor and loyalty. Young Vincent's childhood took a dramatic turn when his father died, leaving him fatherless at the age of 5. His mother, like many Italian matriarchs of her time, became the family's sole protector, struggling to navigate the treacherous waters of raising a son in a neighborhood where the line between legitimate business and organized crime was often invisible. She fought desperately to keep her son from the allure of the streets, but the magnetism of power and respect proved too strong for a young boy searching for his place in the world. By 14, Vincent was already showing signs of the man he would become. He possessed an uncanny ability to read people and situations, a talent that made him a welcome presence in the local haunts where mafia members gathered. The gambling halls became his first classroom, where he demonstrated an extraordinary talent for numbers and strategy that went far beyond his years. His quick mind and even quicker hands made him a natural at card games, earning both money and respect from men twice his age. The neighborhood social clubs and bars served as informal universities of crime, where young men like Vincent learned the intricate dance of power and submission that characterized mafia life. But Vincent was different from his peers. While others were content to learn the basic rules of the game, he studied the players themselves, understanding that true power lay not in knowing the rules but in knowing how to bend them without breaking them completely. It was in the boxing ring where Vincent truly began to forge his identity. At 16, using his older brother's identity to circumvent age restrictions, he stepped into the professional ring and embarked on a career that would see him win 21 of 25 fights, with 18 knockouts that spoke of both his power and precision. The discipline of boxing taught him lessons that would serve him well in his future life: the importance of patience, the value of appearing weaker than you are, and the art of waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The young boxer seemed destined for legitimate success, having moved his family to a better neighborhood and distanced himself from the criminal elements that had fascinated him in his youth. He trained religiously, dreaming of championship belts and Madison Square Garden glory. But fate, in the form of 3 men in expensive suits, had other plans. In 1947, these emissaries from the underworld approached Vincent at his gym with an offer that would alter the course of his life forever. The meeting was a masterclass in the mafia's approach to recruitment. They didn't threaten initially, they appealed to his intelligence, his ambition, and his pride. When he refused their first offer, preferring the honest sweat of the boxing ring to the shadowy world of organized crime, they shifted tactics. The choice they presented wasn't really a choice at all. Join them or face consequences that would extend beyond his own safety to that of his family. It was a moment that would define the rest of his life. This marked the beginning of Vincent's transformation from promising boxer to criminal strategist. Under the watchful eye of Vito Genovese, one of the most powerful mafia bosses of the era, Vincent began to learn the intricacies of organized crime. Genovese saw in the young fighter something special, not just the physical prowess that made him formidable in the ring, but an intelligence and adaptability that could serve a greater purpose in his criminal empire. The American Mafia of the 1950s was an organization in transition. Under Lucky Luciano's leadership, it had evolved from street gangs into a sophisticated criminal enterprise with its own rules and hierarchy. Luciano had established the Commission, a governing body that brought order to the chaos of competing families and territories. When Luciano was deported to Italy, his successor Frank Costello continued this evolution, emphasizing business over brutality and seeking to legitimize the organization's operations whenever possible. But this wasn't enough for some, including Vito Genovese, who saw in Vincent Gigante the perfect instrument for changing the balance of power. Genovese understood that the future of organized crime lay not in street battles, but in the boardrooms and back channels of legitimate business. Vincent, with his quick mind and adaptable nature, seemed perfectly suited to bridge these two worlds. The pivotal moment came in 1957 when Vincent, now Genovese's trusted lieutenant, was tasked with eliminating Costello. The assassination attempt failed. Costello survived 4 gunshot wounds, but in that failure lay the seeds of Vincent's greatest innovation. Costello, despite recognizing his would-be killer, chose silence over vengeance, understanding that the stability of the family mattered more than personal revenge. This lesson would profoundly influence Vincent's future approach to power. The attempted hit on Costello revealed something crucial about Vincent's character, his ability to learn from failure. Rather than seeing the failed assassination as a setback, he studied Costello's response, understanding that sometimes power lies not in what you do, but in what you choose not to do. This insight would later inform his entire approach to running the criminal empire. When Genovese himself was later imprisoned, Vincent found himself at a crossroads. Rather than seize power through traditional means of violence and intimidation, he crafted an elaborate deception that would protect both himself and the organization. He would become the Oddfather, a seemingly insane man who wandered the streets in a bathrobe, muttering to himself and urinating in public. But this apparent madness masked a mind of extraordinary clarity and cunning. The transformation wasn't sudden, it was a carefully orchestrated performance that evolved over time. Vincent began by making small changes to his public behavior, gradually escalating his eccentric actions until they became his new normal. He studied the behaviors of mentally ill individuals, incorporating their mannerisms into his performance while ensuring that his act never went so far as to become unbelievable. Under Vincent's leadership, the Mafia underwent a radical transformation. He instituted revolutionary changes that would reshape organized crime in America. Photography was banned within the organization. No member was allowed to be photographed under any circumstances. Real names became forbidden even between old friends who had known each other for decades. Communication evolved into a complex system of hand signals and codes, making it nearly impossible for law enforcement to penetrate the organization's inner workings. Most brilliantly, he outsourced violence to Asian gangs, keeping Italian hands clean while maintaining iron control through proxies. This move served multiple purposes. It distanced the mafia from direct violence, created plausible deniability, and established a buffer between the organization's leadership and its more brutal activities. The Asian gangs were kept deliberately separate and often in conflict with each other, ensuring they could never unite against their Italian employers. The organization became a sophisticated business empire under his guidance, with legitimate ventures in construction, casinos, and real estate providing cover for more lucrative illegal operations. Vincent understood that the key to longevity wasn't in the barrel of a gun, but in the ledgers of legitimate businesses. He transformed the mafia from a crude criminal enterprise into a sophisticated financial operation that operated in the shadows of Wall Street as comfortably as it did in the back alleys of Little Italy. His genius extended to the way he structured the organization. Rather than maintaining a traditional hierarchy where information flowed up and down clear channels, he created a web of interconnected cells where few members knew more than they absolutely needed to know. This compartmentalization made it nearly impossible for law enforcement to build comprehensive cases against the organization's leadership. For 30 years, Vincent maintained this elaborate charade with a dedication that bordered on performance art. He would take specific pills before medical examinations to induce temporary symptoms of mental illness, hiding them in a hollow tooth. He fooled countless psychiatrists, judges, and FBI agents with his convincing portrayal of a man lost to madness. Even when he occasionally slipped, like the time he called out to a friend by name before catching himself, or when he demonstrated surprising agility avoiding a speeding car, the legend of his insanity had become so entrenched that few questioned it. His genius lay not just in the deception itself, but in how he used it to protect the organization. By appearing mentally incompetent, he created a buffer between himself and law enforcement that allowed him to operate with unprecedented freedom. The FBI might suspect he was faking, but proving it was another matter entirely. Meanwhile, the mafia's operations continued to expand and evolve under his careful guidance. The relationship between Vincent and Gigante added another layer of complexity to his masterful deception. While appearing to be bitter enemies in public, they were actually coordinating their actions to further confuse law enforcement. The failed assassination attempts on Gotti were carefully orchestrated failures, designed to reinforce the image of Vincent as an unstable, ineffective leader while allowing both men to pursue their actual agenda behind the scenes. The extent of Vincent's influence reached far beyond the criminal underworld. He cultivated relationships with politicians, judges, and business leaders, creating a network of influence that protected his interests while furthering his legitimate business ventures. His construction companies won major contracts, his real estate holdings expanded, and his financial investments flourished, all while maintaining the facade of a man too mentally unstable to manage his own affairs. The facade finally began to crack in 1992 when Salvatore Gravano, a former mafia underboss, turned state's evidence. He revealed the truth that had been hiding in plain sight for decades. Vincent Gigante was not only sane, but had been masterfully running one of the most sophisticated criminal enterprises in American history. Even then, it took another 5 years and the threat of his son facing life imprisonment before Vincent finally dropped the act. In his final appearance in court, gone was the shuffling madman who had wandered the streets of New York for 3 decades. Instead, there stood a man of remarkable presence and clarity. To the FBI agent who finally caught him, he offered a chilling admission: "You are the only person in 35 years who has seen the real face of Vincent Gigante." It was a moment that perfectly encapsulated his entire career, a man who had hidden his true nature for so long that the revelation of his sanity was almost more shocking than his pretense of madness. the investigation that finally brought down Vincent Gigante revealed the true extent of his criminal genius. His organization had infiltrated legitimate businesses at every level, from construction unions to Wall Street investment firms. He had created a network of shell companies and front organizations that made tracking the flow of illegal profits virtually impossible. Even as he shuffled through the streets in his bathrobe, he was orchestrating complex financial transactions that would have challenged the most sophisticated business minds. Vincent Gigante died in prison in 2006, but his legacy transformed organized crime forever. He proved that in a world of bullets and bloodshed, the greatest power often lies not in the strength of one's fists or the size of one's army, but in the ability to make others see what you want them to see. His story stands as a testament to the extraordinary lengths one man would go to protect his power, his family, and his empire, even if it meant sacrificing his own identity in the process. The impact of his leadership extended far beyond his death. The protocols and procedures he established, the emphasis on secrecy, the sophisticated money laundering operations, the use of legitimate businesses as fronts became standard operating procedure for criminal organizations worldwide. He had shown that the key to longevity in organized crime wasn't in displays of force, but in the careful manipulation of perception and reality. His influence can still be seen in the way modern criminal organizations operate, prioritizing financial sophistication over brute force, using legitimate businesses as cover, and maintaining strict codes of secrecy. The lessons he taught about the value of misdirection and the power of appearing weak while being strong continue to resonate in both legitimate and illegitimate enterprises. Today, the streets of Little Italy still whisper his name, and in the annals of criminal history, Vincent Gigante remains the man who fooled America by playing the fool, the ultimate puppet master who pulled the strings while pretending to be tangled in them himself. His story serves as a reminder that sometimes the greatest deceptions are the ones hidden in plain sight, and that power often wears masks that few can see through. The legacy of the Oddfather lives on not just in the tactics of organized crime, but in the fundamental lesson he taught, that sometimes the most effective way to hide is not in the shadows, but in the spotlight, where the glare of attention can blind observers to the truth hiding behind the carefully constructed facade of madness. Vincent Gigante's life story remains a testament to the power of perception and the extraordinary lengths to which one man would go to protect his empire, even if it meant sacrificing his own identity in the process. See you tomorrow.